Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. Welcome to another edition of Reviews Without Remorse. My name is Joe. My partner here is Dave. What's happening, partner?
Am I a replicant? Am I a human?
At this point, we don't know.
I don't know.
On today's episode, the teaser trailer for something called Annihilation was dropped, and it looks pretty interesting. We will talk about it. Die Hard Year One. Wow. Somebody's prayers are answered. I don't know about mine, but I guess somebody somewhere wanted this, and we'll talk about it.
Oh, we're going to talk about it.
And then finally, Dave and I will discuss Blade Runner.
Yes, the 1982 classic.
Definitely a classic. We will discuss it.
Ah, yes, this is going to be an awesome episode 33.
Can you describe its form?
No.
Was it carbon-based?
I don't know.
Did it communicate with you?
It reacted to me.
So let's get started. Written and directed by Alex Garland, adapted from the novel by Jeff Vandermeer. This is Alex Garland's movie that he did following up after Ex Machina. It stars Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Tessa Thompson, who you might remember from Creed, Oscar Isaac, Benedict Wong. I mean, it's got quite the cast, and the trailer was intriguing as hell.
It was, wasn't it? I tell you, I don't know anything about this film other than the guy who did Ex Machina is doing this, and Ex Machina was a phenomenal film. I love that one. Mm-hmm. So, and yeah, this was pretty. I'll just say it's intriguing. It's got an intriguing look to it.
Yeah, I almost kind of feel bad watching the trailer because I kind of feel like I don't want to watch anymore. Let me put it that way. I feel like any more of this that we watch is going to be kind of in spoiler territory. I kind of felt the same way about Ex Machina. I saw the one trailer and got the gist of it. It's like, I don't want to see any more. But Garland is kind of like, that's kind of his thing. Let's go over a couple of the movies that he's written. The Beach, 28 Days Later, Sunshine, Dread.
The good Dread.
The good Dread. The really, really good Dread, which I guess you finally got to see because you were like, oh, I hadn't seen
yes, sir.
I'm very glad you enjoyed that. But yeah, this guy's reliable in the sci-fi realm, so this could be extremely interesting. At least I hope it's extremely interesting. From that trailer, do we even know really what's going on?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't even know the time frame. This could be the future. This could be the present. This could be who knows. But I couldn't tell you much about it from the trailer.
The little caption about it, all it says is, a biologist signs up for a dangerous secret expedition where the laws of nature don't apply.
There you go. I mean, that's what it looks like, too. I mean, it's fascinating looking.
Yeah. The funny part is I want to describe it, and I'm having a difficult time doing it, because it's a lot of imagery. You get the idea of, like, Natalie Portman is trying to figure something out, and there's some weirdness. You got kind of like a almost, Pandora from Avatar vibe, but not quite. Right. Kind of like a little more grounded than the Unobtainium type deal. But just, yeah, it's coming out February 2018, and I gotta say, I'm tickled, and I'm in. I'm in on a freaking 1 minute and 47-second teaser trailer, which told me nothing, but I kind of feel like if I watch any more, it's going to ruin the movie.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well, though. Is it just me, or I feel like Natalie Portman lately, every time I see her, it's kind of draining the air out of the room. I don't know what it is. I mean, I used to really like her, and then lately I feel like every time she's in something, like, I don't know, she's not doing it for me these days.
She kind of peaked with Black Swan. That was kind of her, like, high watermark.
Yeah. Like, I'm not crazy about her in the Thor movies. I feel like she sort of, for some reason, she drains the energy from the room. And it's almost like everybody's having fun. Then Natalie Portman walks in, and she's the one that's like the older sister who's going to yell at you. So it's shh, Natalie's here. Like I can't put my finger on what that is.
That could be just the way the character was written. Her character was not very well represented in the Thor movie as opposed to her comic book counterpart. But them's the breaks. You're an actor. You make it work. For God's sakes. Bill Murray can make just about any damn role he does work because he's Bill frickin' Murray.
Come out to the coast. We'll get together. Have a few laughs.
We just finished up our Die Hard series on a low note, for damn sure. Now we got Die Hard Year 1. Here's my first thought. Do you remember, I don't remember if it was for Die Hard 2 or 3, but you and I had a discussion, and you basically said that you didn't see John McClane as being like a reoccurring hero. Mm-hmm. And I kind of made the argument. I said, no, I could see it. I mean, like Sherlock Holmes or, any cop / detective / whatever. I could see reoccurring adventures that trouble he would get himself into here and there. I'm starting to take that back in a big way. For somebody to think it's a good idea to go back and talk about the origin of John McClane, now you're kind of getting a little too carried away. He's not that kind of a hero, I don't think.
This is kind of weird. I mean, the title alone is interesting because this is definitely an idea that they lifted from Frank Miller's Batman Year One.
Yeah.
And, well, first of all, Batman Year One was a brilliant, brilliant piece of art and of comic writing and everything like that. And it was great for its time. It told the story of Batman, but Batman is a character that definitely kind of needs an origin story. You know, here's a guy who's top physical shape and has an incredible detective mind. He didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this, and did it. It took years, and it took time to get him into place. Where in the history of Mr. John McClane did he need that? Is there going to be like this moment where he's kind of walking around the streets of New Jersey? Because it's going to be that he's walking around the streets of New Jersey and, it's going to be like, there's a hot dog vendor over there, but he's not the same guy as yesterday. And like all of a sudden the bionic brain of John McClane is born from that one moment or something like that. How do you do it? Not to mention they're talking about the way that they want to do it is that they're going to have like Bruce Willis basically, quote unquote, narrate it. Who asked for that?
So stupid. This sounds awful. I mean, really good. Not only does it sound awful, but again, the original Die Hard, that was a guy who, like, John McClane was the everyman, and as crazy as things seemed to us, they seemed crazy to him. Right. You know what I mean? So if they're going to do something like, this is the year that John McClane graduated from the police academy, and that year some crazy terrorist came along and did something. If they do anything in this film, it's going to make it seem like the Die Hard doesn't make any sense anymore. Because now he's not experiencing new things for the first time that we're all sort of going, oh my God, this is crazy. What would we do in this? Because even he is fumbling to figure out what to do. So I think anything they do in this Year One thing is going to diminish that, if not destroy it completely.
Yeah, like what's going to happen? He's going to pick up his 45 for the first time, like frickin' Arthur pulling his damn sword out of the stone or something like that. What ground is there to cover in John McClane's life at this point in his life that is so imperative and so informing to the man that he becomes?
It's so stupid. I mean, they want to reboot it. They want to make more Die Hards, and Bruce Willis is getting too old, much less cranky. So, all right, I get that you want to reboot it, but really, the Year One, that doesn't make any sense. If you really just make new action movies, for God's sakes, you don't really need to, I mean, again, I was a fan of Die Hard 4. Die Hard 5 was god-awful. If Bruce Willis doesn't want to do any more, and I'm sure he doesn't, just let it go. Just let it go. Don't reboot this. This one really does not need a reboot. There's nothing. Again, the magic of Die Hard was Bruce Willis and just a perfect action film. But you can do action movies. You don't need to dredge this character up to do it again. I mean, a younger kid going to run around in his guinea tea? Come on. That doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it's the secret origin of the T-shirt, of the Guinea T-shirt that he wears in all the movies.
Seriously.
See the first time that his shirt gets grimy from battle.
Seriously. See the first time he took some hair out of the sink and said, whoops, losing a couple there.
See the first time he goes to the movies and discovers Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Oh my God, seriously. They're going to show young John McClane watching Roy Rogers movies. Oh, jeez. This is all right. So another car crash to keep an eye on before it gets here.
Well, who's seriously? I have to know whose brilliant idea is this? Because this isn't one of those things that like somebody just like pitched it and then they're like, whatever. It's like somebody pitched it, somebody else said yeah, and it got to the point where they actually released it to the press to let the world know this is coming. Someone was excited. It's bad enough this is a world without Hugh Hefner, and now we have to deal with this.
Seriously, right?
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe the loss of Hugh Hefner, the last remnant of an old time and place, finally slipping the mortal coil. Maybe that's like a sign that you should stop really, trying to work the past. Rocky is an anomaly. The fact that Rocky has Creed now and has made a quote-unquote comeback, this is an anomaly. This is lightning in a bottle hitting the lottery, screwing every top 10 model in one night without using Viagra type situation. It's never happening again.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, honestly, I guess they tried poorly to do this in Die Hard 5, but yeah, if they tried to hand the mantle off to somebody else and say, okay, here's the new generation of Die Hard, that would make more sense than going back and doing year one.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna do like a Die Hard with John McClane in the 70s that has no bearing on what's happened in the whole entire series. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And where's the tension? Granted, okay, it's a Die Hard movie. The idea that John McClane would die in a Die Hard movie, out of the question. But now it's even more so.
Right.
Now it's like not even in the frickin' wheelhouse. There's no chance that he's gonna die.
Exactly. And at the end of it, he's gonna meet some cute redheaded girl. Hi, my name is Holly. Oh, my name is John. Just so stupid. I mean, you know what it's gonna be before it even comes out. So why bother?
And then the last lines in the movie will be Bruce Willis saying, "And that's how I met your mother."
There was an escape from the off-world colonies 2 weeks ago. 6 replicants.
I need you, Dex. I need the old Blade Runner.
Should we dive in?
In a smog-choked dystopian Los Angeles of 2019, Blade Runner Rick Deckard is called out of retirement to terminate a quartet of replicants who have escaped to Earth, seeking their creator for a way to extend their lifespans. Written by Hampton Fisher and David Webb Peoples. Based on Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sheep by Philip K. Dick. Directed by Ridley Scott. Released in 1982. Blade Runner.
1982, when you heard the name Ridley Scott, it was just like he was a master back then.
Yep, this was his follow-up to Alien, basically.
Yeah.
He had just hit huge with Alien, and this was a movie that was trying to be made for many, many years. Somebody had been trying to make this movie since, like, I want to say the early 70s, and just nobody was able to do it. And Ridley Scott comes along and makes a quadrillion billion dollars with Alien, and suddenly he's the giant swinging penis in Hollywood, and he's like, I want to make this. Yes sir, you can make that, yes sir, because this was it. Between Alien and Blade Runner, the only other thing he did was a music video for Roxy Music called Avalon. That was it.
Really?
Yep.
That's interesting.
So
it's interesting, and it's funny because it's when you watch Blade Runner, it almost feels like it could exist in the same world as Alien.
That is not a coincidence. He did that on purpose. When Edward James Olmos is flying the car and he's coming in for a landing, the camera angle shows the computer screen, and it's the exact same type of landing screen that they used on the Nostromo for Alien.
Okay.
Yeah, the same graphics and everything.
Interesting. Okay. Does not surprise me one bit.
Yep.
It definitely has that same feel, which, again, I think is part of what makes this movie great, but we will definitely get to it.
Yes, we definitely have to get to that. So we should probably get started. Let's start with the story. Now, this is 1982. So the closest we had to robots running amok around that time frame probably would have to be the original Westworld movie. There's been a couple of robot this, robot that, but like the first time that like a human-looking robot went insane happened in the first Westworld movie. This took that and brought it into a kind of a deep philosophical level. If you think about it, like if here's the thing, you know how we did the review for Westworld, the TV show. This is that spring point. Like you have Westworld, the movie that they're basing it on, and then along comes Blade Runner, which brings in this philosophical idea of robots and everything like that. And that's the springboard that basically the amalgamation between those two is what gave us the modern Westworld, as far as I'm concerned. This movie is a zeitgeist for the dystopian movies ever since. Like, this was it. If you heard dystopian, you were immediately comparing it to this, because this movie, from a look of it, did it beautifully.
Yeah, I will agree with that wholeheartedly. And I tell you, I mean, I think this is one of those movies where you have to remind the young people, you know, it's since sort of been done. I don't want to say done to death, but you've seen it a lot since, not just Westworld. But one of the things it reminded me of was the Animatrix.
Ah, yes.
You know, not only does Blade Runner have that good anime feel, but like in Animatrix, they talk about the robots before the war with the machines, you know, that basically is the origin of the Matrix. Mm-hmm. You know, they show like the evolution of the robots in that, where, you know, the robots are sort of made to look like people, or at least a whole bunch of them, and even they don't understand the robots, and so then the war breaks out against the robots because they rise up. So yeah, I mean, so you do see this theme coming along, and it is good to know that you know, this was the one that started it all, really. As far as I can, like you said, as far as I can remember anyway.
Yeah. Just for clarity purposes, we should let the audience know. The other thing about this movie's had about 17,000 different versions.
Yes, it did.
Okay. There was the original theatrical version, which included a voiceover. There was a director's cut, an ultimate director's cut, a TV cut, blah, 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 blah. And back in 2007, Ridley Scott himself edited what has been called the final cut, which is his like master cut of the movie as the way he saw it, etc. This is the version that we're reviewing.
Right. This is the final cut. And
Yes.
yeah, and it is interesting. One of the most fascinating things about that to me, the fact that there are so many different cuts. The fact that so many things have evolved. Well, I shouldn't say so many things, but there one basic theme that has evolved with the various cuts. That to me is fascinating. Not just because it was cut, and not just because they're worth watching. I literally mean like the whole moral of the film comes into question depending on what cut you watch. And I sort of find that fascinating, because when you watch this, I sort of, you know, I look at the final cut and I say, well, how could it have been any other way? But it was clearly another way. So, and we'll talk about what that is.
In many ways, I haven't really watched the movie in many years, and when we were talking about which one we should review, and we finally settled on this, a part of me kind of felt like, you know, I almost feel like I should watch the theatrical first and then watch this, and I kind of regret not doing that, because now, after watching this version, I kind of feel like I don't really remember all that much from the original. I remember the extremely over exposition of the narration. I remember that.
Yeah.
But that's about the only thing I remember of the original cut. But everything else that happens in this edit, I remember scene-wise. So
I'll tell you what. Let's talk about that, because again, Blade Runner is a phenomenal film. I feel like I should, before we even get into the nitty-gritty, I should at least give like an overall feeling of it, because this film is absolutely phenomenal. When you watch this today, you in some ways you feel like this could be made tomorrow. And I mean, the look of the effects alone are just absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, Douglas Trumbull. Give credit where credit is due. The man was the king of practical effects. Those models, like the models of the Tyrell Corporation, was like a 13 by 18 foot big model that they filmed on.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And honestly, like if they made this film today, and I mean, the sequel is coming out next week. We're going to review it. But from my point of view, the original Blade Runner, if they made it tomorrow, it probably would not have been as good, even given what they can do special effects wise. Because honestly, they take it for such granted. You know, like the models of the buildings in this one, they take such time to sort of focus on it, and there's like these little slow zooms, and they even do. You know, it's interesting. You know, when you watch a film, usually there's like the big wide establishing shot, and then you sort of go in on your characters, and then you sort of go in for your close-ups. Even the first shot of the Tyrell Corporation, the guys inside interviewing the first replicant,
right? Leon.
They kind of have they do like a wide shot of the building, then they sort of cut to inside the building, then they come back outside the building, and they're zooming in. They cut in again and back out. So they're sort of toying with the rules a little bit there. But what's great about that is you really get to see some of the visuals. And today, whereas, again, it would be so taken for granted, like the special editions with Cloud City, in Empire Strikes Back, where they follow one of the cloud cars going around the city. That scene should have, I mean, that's a beautiful planet in the clouds. There should be a sense of grandeur as you fly through there, but there really isn't. It's just kind of whipping around, zip, 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 and you really don't get a chance to really look around. Here, you get some good establishing shots of those visuals, and you can really get a sense of scale and scope. And it's really nice that you can marvel at this world for a little bit. You know, that's one of the things about this film. The environment it creates is just phenomenal. And you have a chance to sort of take it in and absorb it. You know, it's not rushing to get through to the next scene or whatever.
Right.
So, anyway. So, yeah, let's talk about the cuts. The cuts, to me, are fascinating. The original theatrical cut, apparently, after it was shot, the studio was so nervous that people weren't going to get it. They actually had Harrison Ford come back in and record audio. Now, the rumor has it that Harrison was really against doing that, and I don't blame him, because it was a terrible idea. It's, when he did it, again, like I said, it's all rumor, but apparently he did it so poorly, he was hoping they would just say, oh, this is terrible, we're not going to use it. But they did use it. And the actual theatrical cut has, and again, this is about a detective / cop who's hunting down these robots, these replicants. So the actual narration, and of course the whole film is done in this noir style. Right. You know, it's what they call like high tech noir, or incidentally, I've heard the term cyberpunk sort of originated from this film. That was a term that got thrown around after this, sort of.
Yeah, I could see that, actually. The guy William Gibson, the man who wrote the true godfather of cyberpunk novel, Necromancer. I think it's called Necromancer. Anyway, the rumor is that he went to see this movie and had to walk out after 20 minutes because he felt like they were getting too much of the things that he was starting to write about, and he didn't want to adversely influence him. So yeah, this can be seen as the grandfather, as the father of cyberpunk. Yes. Yeah.
So, but anyway, it does have this like futuristic noir, like this is sort of almost like Philip Marlowe in the future.
Yeah.
So the fact that they did do this narration, there is a logic to it, and on one level, it does kind of work.
I'd quit because I'd had a belly full of killing. But then I'd rather be a killer than a victim. And that's exactly what Bryant's threat about little people meant. So I hooked in once more, thinking that if I couldn't take it, I'd split later. I didn't have to worry about Gaff. He was brown-nosing for a promotion, so he didn't want me back anyway.
But it works in a cheaper way. Like it's first of all, it's spoon-feeding you information that you should be discerning on your own. But even then, it just kind of comes off as a little silly. Like if you see both versions, the narration sticks out like a sore thumb.
Very much so.
There are some lines in the narration that are just laughably bad, like so bad that they're hysterical.
And defying logic. I just did they have to explain? And of course, we're talking about the movie, so spoilers. Did they have to explain at the end of the movie? He finds that origami from Gaff at his apartment where he's found Rachel alive. And watching it in this version, I was like, that's kind of great. I like that. I like that Gaff's like, yeah, I was here, and you go ahead. You enjoy yourself. Mm-hmm. It's silently done. Whereas in the narration, he says something along the lines of, Gaff was here and decided to let her live and let me know that she's going to live longer.
Gaff had been there and let her live. 4 years, he figured. He was wrong. Tyrell had told me Rachel was special. No termination date. I didn't know how long we'd have together. Who does?
Something right. It was something really, really ridiculous like that. And it just, I in a weird way, I wasn't looking forward to the movie because of that, because I remember that extremely cringeworthy dialogue. Yeah. But I knew that it wasn't going to be in it, but I was just curious, well, okay, because they spoon-fed it to me, can it still convey what it needs to convey?
Yeah. See, that's right. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, the narration just comes off as, like, subtitles for dummies. You know, like if you're too dumb to get it, we'll literally explain to you as the film goes along what's happening. And it just robs you of the whole experience of figuring things out for yourself. I mean, like any other movie where it's like where you're picking up little clues and putting things together, the narration just robs you of that. So it really is just god awful. And again, I haven't seen the narration version in ages either. I just remember parts of it, but yeah, even in this one, in this final cut, when he picks up that origami at the end, he has the flashback where you hear him say again, "Too bad she's not going to live," or "none of us do anyway," or something or other. And I was annoyed that they even put that in. I was like, just leave that. You should have just left that out. Just think about it for a second. We'll get it. We get it. So the fact that they repeated that line was annoying.
Agreed. It was a little over the top, but yeah, I don't know, man. Considering, here, I found the lines. "We're in the clear, running fast, north on the old Richter route past the mountains. I told her about Batty on the roof dying, making every second count. I told her I loved her. She told me it was the happiest day of her life. She told me she loved me too. I figured I couldn't get the headaches or the shakes anymore, not for a while. It was good enough for me. I hope it was good enough for her." That was the original frickin' ending.
That was, well, yeah, right. That was a tacked on scene where the two of them literally drive off into the mountains. And by the way, the mountains are the mountains from The Shining. Did you know that? The footage they used was.
I actually do I'm sorry. Here's the actual line. "Gaff had been there and let her live 4 years."
There you
figured he was wrong. "Tyrell had told me Rachel was special. No termination date." It's like, when did Tyrell tell you that?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. They're right. They're shoehorning in a happy ending for test audiences who were just like, "What is this? I don't get it." Yeah. So that again, and this film is a work of art. You can't do that. You can't dumb it down
any more than they tried.
I mean, it shouldn't be dumbed down because you're ruining something that is absolutely phenomenal. Because in the end, what you get, I mean, this film again is absolutely riveting. I mean, I think it's one of those films that you look at and it's really hard to poke a hole in it. I mean, it might not be your cup of tea. In fact, I remember when I was younger, coming off of Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Oh, Harrison Ford's got a new sci-fi movie coming out. Can't wait to see it. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh, like this wasn't what I had in mind when I was younger.
Right.
As you get older, you go, oh, wow, this then you realize this is something else.
Yeah, it's the funny part about this movie is the more I think about it, the harder it is to really discuss in a decent amount of time. There's just so much to it, especially this version. This version is so full of more nuance than the spoon-fed, Basil exposition version, which is what I'm going to refer to it from now on.
Yeah.
That I kind of felt like I was watching the movie again for the first time. And I kind of feel like I tend to, if we're doing a movie that's not a theatrical release, I tend to watch it the day we're doing the show, ladies and gentlemen. And that's always been helpful, especially for movies that I'd already seen before. This is one of those rare times where I was watching it again and I kind of felt bad. I felt like I should have watched it Saturday and done a rewatch today. Because I feel like because it's this version, which I hadn't really seen before. I hadn't seen the final cut before. I feel like I needed to give it a lot more attention than what I did give it. I mean, I gave it 2 hours of my time. It's a 1 hour, 57-minute movie, but I still kind of feel like when it was over, the credits were just running, and there's that wonderful Vangelis music, and I'm just sitting there, like pondering, and thinking to myself, man, it's like, because I say to myself, it's not a perfect movie. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just so amazingly compelling, even today, even with today's standards of science fiction movies. And watching it kind of made me realize why Dennis, whose name I'm going to slaughter, the guy who's doing Blade Runner 2049,
Villeneuve or whatever.
Yeah, but now I could see where his influence is. Like if you watch Arrival, he is the great grandson, so to speak, of Ridley Scott in his directing style.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would totally agree that he's probably, for that reason, the perfect person to helm the sequel. And again, I still remember you and I when they first dropped the trailer. You said back then that this is a story that does not need a sequel. This stands on its own, and I can totally see where you're coming from. But again, like I said back then, I think I was like, well, look, they're going to do it anyway. Let's just hope it's good. And I still sort of feel that way. But yeah, I think he is. If you're going to do it, he is the right guy to do it.
Yeah, Dennis Villeneuve. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. To respond to what you said about the different versions, and maybe you should have watched it twice or whatever. I don't really feel that you have to watch the old versions. I don't feel like you have to watch the narration one because, first of all, that was sort of an afterthought that I do not think was the director's idea. So I could care less about the narration, but there are significant changes in the cuts that happen, and basically. I'll just kind of drop hints, and we'll see when we start talking about this. Whatever. I don't want to fast forward to punchlines or anything, but the scene with the unicorn running through the woods.
Right.
This was apparently added later. This was not in the original cut, and this was something that Ridley Scott had added in a future cut.
Right.
Now, and obviously for one big reason. The bottom line is I am sort of fascinated by that because what he did that was apparently an afterthought works so perfectly. And I've heard people debate back and forth about this. I have a hard time imagining it any other way. I guess I should just stop beating around the bush and talk about what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you should definitely get right to the point.
Yeah.
But I see where you're coming from, but I think the audience might be a little lost.
Yeah.
So spell it out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, again, like with any podcast, spoilers. So if you haven't seen Blade Runner yet, go see it. I don't know if I'd even call this a spoiler because, again, I don't even know that this is actual canon. These are just theories. But still, you go watch it and then come back and listen to the rest of this. Okay, here is the big debate. Is Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, is he a replicant?
Correct.
Now, again, in the earlier cuts, the assumption was... There was never an assumption that Deckard was a replicant. Later on, in one of the cuts... There's an added scene of the unicorn as Deckard is just sitting there sort of daydreaming. They drop in a scene of a unicorn running through the woods. Mm-hmm. An actual horse with a horn sticking out of his head running through the woods without any real context. Okay? Right. Fast forward to the end of the film when Deckard and Sean Young are about to run off and Rachel, they're going to run off into the sunset and he finds the origami unicorn.
Right.
Meaning that so-and-so had been there.
Gaff. His name was Gaff.
Thank you. Gaff had been there, left the unicorn. Now, without that scene of the unicorn running through his mind, what's the significance of the unicorn? Well, really nothing, except the fact that he had been there and left a clue that he had been there. Okay? Mm-hmm. But when with the scene of the unicorn running through his mind, you now know that Gaff has looked into his dreams, into his thoughts, and is basically revealing, hey guy, see this unicorn? Why do I know this? Why is this relevant? So, if Deckard is not a replicant, there's a lot of scenes in this film that I don't think work anymore. So that's why I sort of wonder, like, was this in the back of Ridley Scott's mind in the beginning and not very clear? Because according to a lot of people, no, Deckard is not a replicant. He was never supposed to be. This is like an afterthought when all the movies with the twists come along, and Ridley Scott went back and sort of retconned and said, "Oh no, yeah, he's a replicant. Get it?" And everybody's like, "No, he's not."
See, that's an interesting story, but keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, that's basically it. I mean, there are a couple other scenes that don't quite make a lot of sense if he's not a replicant, and I'm sort of the opinion that I'm sort of siding with Ridley Scott on this, saying, yeah, I think he was too, but apparently that's not the case.
Well, this is a situation where you have a director and an actor who don't agree, because Harrison Ford has basically said that he doesn't think Deckard is a replicant. And if Harrison Ford is doing a farewell tour of his characters to give them the send-offs that he wants to give them. For example, he wanted Han Solo to die in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And that didn't happen, so he had him die in The Force Awakens. You know that was a condition of him coming back for the one damn movie.
Probably.
All right? So now here comes Blade Runner 2049, and he's gone on record publicly to state that he doesn't think Deckard is a replicant. So either Dennis has changed his mind, or this movie's basically going to confirm that. This sequel that's coming up is basically going to confirm that, which may, in fact, undercut this movie.
Yeah, it very well may. I mean, again, I don't really take Harrison Ford's word on anything with regard to that, because if I am Ridley Scott and I'm directing Harrison Ford, I'm not going to tell him he's a replicant because he's not supposed to know he's a replicant. He's supposed to think he is a regular person, which is the whole point. I mean, again, this is one. I mean, I find that there are so many things in this film that are clues to say that he is, that don't work if he's not. So yeah, the idea that he is going to tell Harrison Ford that Deckard is a replicant, that doesn't mean anything to me because I don't think he would tell him.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. I would doubt that Ridley Scott's original intention was that he was a replicant, but Ridley Scott isn't directing this movie. It's not on him. It's now Dennis.
Right. Well, we're talking about the sequel.
Right.
Yeah, but any sequel can come along with a new director and just redo everything his own way, just completely disregarding what happened in the past. That doesn't change this film. I mean, this film is still this film. As far as I'm concerned, Deckard could be a replicant in this one and not in the next one, because the director has that carte blanche to do what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true.
I mean, for example, there's a scene where, first of all, he's talking to
Tyrell Corporation.
Thank you. He's talking to Tyrell, talking about Rachel, and he gives her the test, and it takes her a lot longer. He has to ask her like 100+ questions before he can determine that she is a replicant. So, of course, then he talks to Tyrell, saying she doesn't even know she's a replicant, does she? And Harrison Ford is saying, how can she not know? How can you not know what she is? And to me, that's almost like the red doorknob in The Sixth Sense. Like, that to me right there is sort of like the conversation. The things just, how can you not know you're a replicant? It's almost like Tyrell could be saying to him, well, you don't know. This is how we design them. Later on, when Rachel comes to his apartment, he's telling her, like, well, she's realizing she's a replicant, and he's telling her, yes, these thoughts were implanted in you, memories. They're implanted in you. And so she kind of reacts, and she says, well, has the test ever been done on you? Well, they're talking, and the last thing she says was, the test ever done on you, just as he sort of conks out on the couch, meaning that answer's hanging in the air, that he had never taken the test himself or whatever. So, and here's another one. The big fight at the end, by the way. The fight at the end with him and Rutger Hauer, which is phenomenal, by the way. Rutger Hauer saves his life at the end. And why? Why would he do that? As far as I can tell, there is no explanation for that. Rutger Hauer's character has already killed Tyrell. He has killed several people.
He killed JF, who was a nice guy, a friend who helped.
A friend, exactly, who did nothing but help. And here comes Deckard, who is hunting them down. He's already killed off Daryl Hannah's character, who was his only friend left. Meanwhile, he's already killed a couple other applicants before that. And so now Rutger Hauer is hunting down Harrison Ford, and at the last second, for no apparent reason, saves his life. And I'm saying to myself, that has to be an indication that Deckard is a replicant, because I cannot figure out any reason for that if he's not. So, and again, like I said, I could be talking right up my wazoo, and, it could be fact that he can't be because, but, like I said, these scenes to me don't make any sense if he's not. If Harrison Ford is not a replicant, then I don't understand it's like these clues are there. So if the payoff isn't there, then I'm not really following what the clues were about.
I don't really have a good explanation as to why Roy saved him. I don't. And it's one of the reasons I ding this movie a little bit, because even if he is a replicant, it still doesn't really forgive it. I mean, did Roy at any point kind of come across as, replicant power and stuff like that? That we have to stick together? He never made any... What?
I absolutely got that impression. I got the impression that he was there with his other replicant friends, and if he can help them for the same reasons he's trying to meet his maker. He's trying to meet his creator.
Yeah, to extend his life.
Right.
To extend his life.
But he's also, I think he's also kind of, I mean, he's in touch with Roy. He hangs out with Daryl Hannah. I get the sense that he would be very sympathetic to other replicants in his shoes. I mean, like I said, if somebody can explain to me one reason why he would rescue Harrison Ford other than that, yeah, I don't know. Go ahead. I kind of jumped in on you, but
no, it's all right. But it's still even if let's look at the two possibilities of what it could be. Potentially two possibilities. One, he realized his life was ending that he was not going to live much longer, and decided on an act of mercy as his final act, and which brought about the extremely wonderful, amazing, and completely improvised "all those memories will be lost in time like tears in the rain."
Yeah.
Okay? That's the only thing I could think of in that respect. Now, from the other respect, if it is replicant power, replicants have to stick together, why didn't he tell him?
Yeah, I don't know. There's another thought. I mean, I guess I don't know why he wouldn't have just said to him.
Yeah. I mean, unless maybe, you know what? Here's the thing. In a weird way, the replicant angle actually does work better because it could be the absolute final giant middle finger to Deckard as his last revenge. It's like, no, you know what? You get to live, and you get to wonder why.
There you go. I'll take it.
that would kind of get me. If I'm talking about me in that position, here I am. I have just killed 3 of your friends, or whatever replicants call each other. You have vowed to kill me. You've broken my fingers. You've chased me around howling like a wolf. Freaking amazing scene, by the way.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's like, so I beat you. Boop, game over. What? That would haunt the hell out of me.
Yeah. No, it is true, and I do think if I'm Deckard, that I'm walking around now wondering, why did this guy save my life? I mean, even in the version with the narration, he gives a totally weak, stupid.
I don't know why he saved my life. Maybe in those last moments he loved life more than he ever had before. Not just his life. Anybody's life. My life.
I guess he was just tired of killing, or da-da-da-da-da. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, if I'm Deckard, I am wondering why. I mean, even the scene, if you think about it, first of all, that scene is, the whole scene of the showdown between the two of them is pretty chilling. Like, I love the scene where Deckard is walking along the wall. All of a sudden, the fist just comes punching through the wall and just grabs his arm with the gun and yanks it through the...
Yep.
Oh, my God. Like, that is terrifying, really. But what does he do? He takes his fingers and he snaps 2 of his fingers. Snap, that's for so-and-so. Snap, that's for the other one. He breaks 2 of his fingers.
Yep.
And essentially just lets him go. Like, so already it's almost like, in my mind, like, if he's a replicant, like, if he knows he's a replicant, he's going to sort of punish him just enough. And breaking 2 fingers kind of does that. You know what I mean? Like, you killed 2 of my friends. Snap, snap. But he could have just pulled his whole head through the wall and just caved his head in.
Yeah,
but he
pretty
doesn't.
much.
So,
I mean that's what he did to Tyrell.
Thing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is just him toying with him, basically. And I kind of feel like he's toying with somebody who, on one hand, he's killed 2 of my friends, but on the other hand, he doesn't even understand that he's one of us. He's been duped by these other people, too. He is used by the humans in the same way we are. So I'm not going to kill one of my own, but I might get damn close or something or other. You know what I'm saying?
And teach him a lesson. By the way, as jump and unsettling as the scene was when he ripped his hand through the wall and pulled his arm through, the scene where he stuck his head through was even better.
You better get it up. I'm gonna have to kill you. Unless you're alive. You can't play, and if you don't play...
Because, I mean, that wall looked freaking perfect. Whoever was the set decorator did an amazing job. Because I was looking, I know he pokes his head through the wall, but I couldn't remember where. And when it finally did, it's like, oh, shit, there it is.
Oh, my God. That is... that is so good. I mean, the quality of this film is really phenomenal. I feel like down to every detail, there is... That's why I say to myself, this thing that we're talking about can't be an accident. Like everything about this film is so thought out. Every detail is so amazing. I mean, even like, again, this was done in the early 80s. When you watch it now, when you watch it now, it's funny because you say to yourself, I guess back in the 80s, it was looking like the I don't know if it was the Chinese or the Japanese or whoever was going to basically be taking over so much of this country, because it looks like this could have happened in Tokyo. Because like the murals against the moving pictures on the sides of the buildings are Asian faces. Everyone down below, it's like half the people down there, if not more, are Asian. So they had this vision, I guess, that at some point America was going to be almost taken over by the Asians. But it does seem like everything is so well thought out. The scenes of him bashing his head through, oh my God, that's just craziness. I mean, I feel like nobody since then even has replicated that idea.
Pun not intended. No, it's what makes that entire ending scene just amazing.
Yeah.
It's just so well done.
Yeah.
And props have to be given, of course, to Mr. Rutger Hauer. This was a very early movie in his career.
Yeah.
And he slam dunk as far as I'm concerned.
He not only is he great, but boy does he get the good lines too. He really gets this to me is like when you watch this film and you watch him, that's like a dream part. I kind of feel like any actor would like just be killing like just sifting through different scripts looking for that kind of a part. When you have an opportunity to give a chilling performance and have all the best lines in the film. Oh my God, he's so great to watch in this.
God, when he's describing, I mean, you better be putting in his quote, his big denouement quote that he did about the things that he's seen, all the way up to Lost like tears in the rain.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die.
That last little monologue from him, says so much about the character, and his delivery of it is so convincing. You know, here's a guy who's been a psychopath throughout the entire movie, and there's sorrow in his eyes. There's sorrow in his eyes, and yet not too much. Like just the tiniest bit of sorrow. Like, you know, this is where I have grown into as a replicant living all these years. That I have this tiny, tiny little bit of empathy in me, but not completely. Just deliver that tears in the rain.
Yeah.
Just, oh God. Do you know he titled his autobiography "All Those Memories" after that line?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
no, I didn't know that.
All those moments. Yep.
I'll tell you what else too. I actually, you said we talked about that scene and whether or not why he rescues Harrison Ford. I think not only does I think he shuts himself off. Like the idea that he dies right there. I frankly think that he shuts himself off. I think he chased Harrison Ford to the very last second, till he was right about, and he lets him dangle there right until like his last pinky fingers, and then just grabs him at the last second, rescues him. And as the two of them are sitting there, I think the whole point of that is not that he dies necessarily, but his friends are all gone. His maker is dead. There's really nothing left. So at the moment when he rescues Harrison Ford and he says what he says, I just think he just says, you know what? Like he probably doesn't have much more life anyway, but he's probably just like, you know what? I've reached the end of my existence. There is absolutely nothing left for me at this point. Click, and he just shuts off.
I could see that, but I don't think that at all. They actually showed a couple of times in the movie where he realized he was starting to go and that he didn't have a lot of time.
Right?
One of the first scenes where he's introduced, they show him with his hand kind of clawing up a little bit, like seizing a little bit. And then during the big chase scene with him again, it's happening again to the point that he's sticking nails into his hand to get some mobility back.
Oh, is that what that is? Because I could not... I'd say that was one of the things I could not figure out.
When it happened, he was looking at his hands like, no, not yet, not yet. That's what he meant by that. He was starting to go.
Okay, and why does he feel pain when he jabs the nail through? Because didn't they sort of show us before that one guy stuck his head in the freezing cold, she sticks her hand in the boiling water? I thought the whole point was that they didn't feel pain necessarily, or if they did, it was a lot less. But he jabbed himself with a knife when he's practically, screaming in pain.
Well, I think that their extremities don't feel pain, but I think that when their internal systems are compromised, they get like a sensor alarm of sorts that comes across as pain. Because look at what happened when Zora got shot. You know, how she reacted as she was running, half naked through the streets. Look at how Pris was when she got shot in the stomach and she started flipping out and having like a seizure or a tantrum on the floor.
Yeah.
Once you get in, their exterior can withstand the heat and the cold that they demonstrated that they go through. But once that exterior is broken, it's vulnerable. And I took it as he was trying to force the pain into his hands to try to, I don't know, maybe get it to work for a little bit longer. I didn't quite get it, but I did understand that as he was looking at his hands like, no, not yet, that was him saying he knew his time was short.
Okay, you could be right. You definitely could be right. I kind of interpret that a little bit differently, because I thought it seemed to me that once he rescues Harrison Ford, there literally is. It's almost like as we feel the story is over, he feels his story is over, and that was it. But
I like the poeticness of that thought. I really, really do. But I'm not completely convinced. And it's a good thought, and that's something we could probably debate for another good 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I just don't see it that way. I think it was less poetic and more visceral than anything else.
I'm Rachel.
Deckard.
They were designed to copy human beings in every way.
But when all is said and done, it comes down to one thing and one thing alone. Was it a good story? I thought it was a good story. I thought it was told well. I thought that this is a movie whose story was actually a relatively simplistic tale, but told wonderfully, told in a way that can drive a philosophical debate, and is by far one of the most beautiful looking movies ever.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. You know, the visuals of this film, the striking visuals, may overshadow the story a bit, but honestly, the story is terrific because it is a simple story, but it's the kind of story that really gets you thinking. I mean, again, first of all, it's fascinating when you think about it, and maybe this might even be a plot hole. Why would we build robots that were so human and lifelike that we ourselves can't tell? I mean, that is sort of, again, why would that seems like a problem that we created intentionally, and why would we do that? That we honestly can't decide either if they're real or not. But once you've accepted that, and once you've accepted the fact that we do have these robots with essentially a life of their own, he says they will start to take on human emotions at some point. Why are we killing them then? I mean, look at the girl who's the stripper with the snake or whatever. I mean, that scene almost seems sort of injected into the rest of the story. Like we knew that there was a few replicants running around. We know who Roy is. We know who these other ones are. She was sort of just off minding her own business, right? But he tracks her down and finds her. And subsequently, he chases her through the streets and shoots her in the back. So suddenly you're kind of like, okay, so why are we doing that? Again, she's minding her own business. She's not hurting anybody. Why the need to hunt them down and kill them? And that to me is a fascinating like that to me is what sort of makes this story transcend into something else, where it's as simple as the story is. Now it gives us a different level where we can ask questions and ask moral questions and say, okay, well, why are we doing that? Why do we? I mean, I understand that replicants have risen up and killed people. Okay. But we've got people today who kill other people. Doesn't mean we go hunting down the whole species and whatever. So, yeah, I find the film to be very thought-provoking as well. So I think the story is absolutely terrific, and it's the perfect vehicle with which to tell the story.
Yeah. Yeah, if you sat down and logic the movie, it's going to outlogic itself. But I think that, in a weird way, the grandness and the scope of the movie can almost overpower some of the weaknesses. I didn't give it a perfect score, for example, based on a lot of those logical weaknesses, but just because I don't say this is a 100% 10 should not detract from the fact that this is truly a lightning in the bottle, a zeitgeist movie of its time that if you call yourself a film fan, it has to have been viewed by you at least once.
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, but this is the kind of film you need to teach in film school.
100%.
That's the kind of thing, too. I mean, I love certain movies that, the visual storytelling and just the quiet moments sort of sometimes tell you much more than is actually being said to you, which is why the narration version is such a travesty, because it takes that and turns it completely upside down and destroys what it does. Yeah, I mean, there's something about this style of filmmaking that I think is just so amazing,
and so lost.
Absolutely, very much so.
You don't see this type of filmmaking anymore. There's very few people that work in a practical wheelhouse that understand that the story is not just the effects, that the effects serve to tell you about where you are, not what is going on.
Exactly. Yeah, it's right. It's the antithesis of the George Lucas telling instead of showing kind of storytelling. Yeah. I will say this though, I am, as opposed to where we were when we were talking about the first Kingsman, I am very interested to see what the sequel does. The look of the sequel looks pretty good. I see a lot of things, especially now having watched the original again. I am picking up things in the trailer now that I can see were sort of spin-off or take, ideas that were sort of taken from the first one. So I got my fingers crossed. I don't know, like, I'm trying not to go in with a lot of hype, but I do got my fingers crossed, and I am interested to see what's going to happen. It could be pretty. Again, the director is very impressive, so I got high hopes.
I do too. I'm hopeful as well. Although there's one thing about this movie that I didn't like that has nothing to do with the score that I'm about to give it is this. It's 2019. It's 2017 now. Where the hell are my flying cars?
That
was a long time ago, man. They really didn't think that we would make it this way, I guess.
Seriously.
I rated this movie an 8 out of 10.
It's funny you say that. I came up with the exact same score. I called it an 8 as well. There's a part of me that says, like, after all the raving about it, and I really couldn't find anything wrong with it, why am I not rating it higher? Because it sets its bar not too low, but again, like we said, it's a simple story, a thought-provoking story. It's almost like it's the kind of film that, again, it wants to tell a simple story. And it's not it's not Citizen Kane. It's not the life story of somebody. It's not an epic tale. It tells a simple story and does it perfectly. And and a lot of people will find it to be very slow moving. A lot of people find it boring. And to those people, I get why you would say that. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I find it to be, like I said, just really well made, very insightful, thoughtful story. And again, like you said, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, very well said. I agree with you. It's a very hard movie to describe to people because I tell them, you need to watch it. It's not a perfect movie. And we're like, well, what's not perfect about it? I even have a hard time explaining to them what I find not perfect about it.
Yeah.
It's just that, I don't know. I don't want to say that anybody's done it better. I just feel like, I feel like there was definitely an element or something like that was missing that I just don't feel qualified enough to figure out exactly what it was. I've got one thing for my Who Asked You, but that's really not the problem with the movie that keeps it from getting a perfect 10.
Yeah. Well, we're at that moment. So if you want to tell us now,
all right. List? Who asked me? I like Harrison Ford. I like Sean Young. I think they played their parts very well. I didn't buy them as a couple for a second. There was zero chemistry there.
Well, yeah, you know what? I've heard that argument before too. I found it to be sort of the opposite. Well, again, she's a robot, and he's supposedly not. He's a hard-boiled detective. I found it to be sort of an opposites attract kind of a thing, and I agree too. Sometimes I feel like the only reason they got together is because she's probably the first woman that actually walked in his apartment in 20 years. You almost get that sense that he just, he's so doesn't exactly date a lot. So when this good-looking girl comes in his apartment, he's going to be all over. Maybe.
The whole the seduction scene, I just didn't feel like Harrison Ford actually wanted her to tell me you love me and put my hands on you and stuff like that. I didn't feel that at all. Not like, did you ever see Presumed Innocent with him in it? Yeah. There's a scene where him and the woman that he has an affair with are first fooling around. And Harrison Ford wanted to screw that woman in that scene. 100%. He did not want to screw Sean Young in this scene. 100%.
The part when she starts to walk out of the apartment right before the whole seduction scene, she starts to walk out. When he walks around her and sort of lifts the one arm with the one fist and kind of punches the door closed, I thought it was a really awkward kind of a
odd decision.
Yeah.
It's like, is it going to be a BDSM thing? Nope. Just a, tell me you love me.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a little weird.
It's a small weakness because the weird part is for the parts that they played, they both played their parts like pitch perfect. Just the two of them just didn't work for me.
No, I hear it.
How about you? Who asked you?
For mine, I'm going to cheat a little bit, but I have to go to that god-awful narration. Now, again, we're not reviewing that version of it, so this is sort of a cheat, but just the idea that they went back and did a whole narration over this film, it's almost like you took the Mona Lisa and then you put a little connect the dots on top of that. It doesn't make any sense, and it's just some of the lines in that narration are just god awful. So that to me is like, ugh. You took something that was sublime and you turned it into a turd.
There was a documentary that came out when this version of the movie came out. I want to say like Dangerous Games or Dangerous Curves or something like that. Mm-hmm. Supposedly in it, Scott said that when they talked about doing narration, he wanted the narration to just be like Deckard explaining himself from an emotional level, not having him narrate the entire story.
Right.
Which, as if you're going with the noir thing, would have been much better.
Yeah, I mean, again, some of those great detective films, they have interesting narration, and that sometimes is where the great writing is. Mm-hmm. But that's not what they did here.
No, not at all. No, it was terrible.
For your consideration, I will let you go first because I had two that I was sort of neck and neck, and I have a hunch you're gonna say one of them. So okay. I'm gonna let you go first.
I'm going to cheat a little bit with mine. Normally we're supposed to say one. I'm giving you two this week because I couldn't decide between the two. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a tie. The first is to Mr. Douglas Trumbull, the creator of the amazing visual effects in this movie, that hold up to this day.
Very absolutely.
To this very day, they still hold up. The models are gorgeous. The way the flyers work, gorgeous. The set decorators should also get a lot of credit as well because the sets are just amazing in this flick.
Agreed.
So 100% Douglas Trumbull. The man was just so people know, the other movie that he did, the other big movie that he did, the spaceships in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that was him.
Yeah, and a little you can see a little of visual cues in there. A lot of he uses the lens flares, like the lighting is phenomenal.
The right way. He uses the lens flares the right way.
Exactly.
Let's add that. And the other one, I know for a fact is going to be on yours. The other one, Mr. Rutger Hauer.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can't see this, but I am holding my paper, my cheat sheet, up to so Dave can see exactly. I don't know if he can even read it, but
I saw it, Rutger.
I had visuals and then Rutger Hauer, and I had Rutger Hauer in parentheses because I thought that was the one Dave was going to say. So I was going to just fall back and say the great visuals. But my friend, obviously, we are sharing your brain on this one.
This is one of those nice moments with us. We don't always agree on everything. We tend to go back and forth. But this is one of those really nice moments where we just seem to be in good sync, and still had a lively debate about it too.
Agreed. Yeah, but I don't want to steal your thunder. Let's talk about Rutger Hauer because boy, does he do a phenomenal job in this film.
I remember seeing this man for the first time, and I saw this in the theater. I actually made my mom. I dragged my mom to see this, and she fell asleep during it. I couldn't keep my eyes off the movie, and I remember the first time he came out, and I remember feeling just chilled, just looking at him. He just had this look about him, like it was a kindly face, a handsome face, but there was just something about him that you just knew this is not the man you screw with in any respect. And he's basically built a career of that ever since. But my God, just the way he carried himself, the way that entire final scene between him and Deckard went, the way he gave Deckard a head start as he's over the body of Pris, trying to hold himself together, and then just before. I mean, and this is supposed to be a character that's not supposed to have emotions. He managed to have a character that has no emotions, convey emotions, without breaking the fact that the character has no emotions. How do you do that?
Right? But incidentally, all the cast is phenomenal, by the way. I kind of felt 100%. Like there was a couple people we probably should have mentioned I didn't even really get around to yet. But
and Walsh as the chief. Yep. You had Edward James Olmos as Gaff, his little, funny little origami making guy.
Yeah.
You had goodness, what the heck was... Hold on. You know what? I apologize because I feel like we should actually give credit where credit is due. You had Sean Young as Rachel. You had Emmett Walsh. Daryl Hannah as Pris. Yeah. William Sanderson as J.F. Sebastian. William Sanderson, you believe me, between Emmett Walsh and William Sanderson, you've seen these guys before. Yeah. They've been in everything. Yeah. In fact, William Sanderson was one of my favorite characters on the TV show Deadwood.
Right, yeah.
You know? The late, great Brian James as Leon. The late, great Joe Turkel as Dr. Terrell. And you might remember Joe Turkel as the bartender from The Shining, the Stanley Kubrick Shining.
Yes. Yep, very good. Yep.
Joanna Cassidy, who played Zora, and James Hong, the wonderful James Hong. He had one scene in the entire movie, but I just know that guy. He was, the guy from Big Trouble in Little China, for God's sakes.
Yep.
What an amazing cast for its time.
Yeah.
It's just, God. But Rutger was the shiny star. Out of all.
Yeah.
He outshone even Harrison Ford. So, there you go.
I mean, he was really the one you're looking at the entire time. I mean, Harrison Ford's playing the everyman, that you're following through this journey. But yeah, Rutger Hauer, boy, he was the one that you really just couldn't take your eyes off of.
Yeah. They always say a good movie is only as good as its villain.
Yeah.
And brother, has that man played some villains in his day?
It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does?
More human than human is our motto.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
That was Blade Runner, and I am looking forward to the next one. I'm looking forward to next week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this.
Yeah,
this is another one. Again, this is another. It's funny when we talked about how this did or did not need a sequel. In my mind, sometimes a sequel is more about the rich world that we were given the first time around, and it almost seems a shame not to revisit it again. Mm-hmm. So I as long as they get that right, if they give us a good story and a good visual world that we can kind of set foot in. I mean, that to me is like when you create a world that you feel you could walk around in, that is really an accomplishment, and that's what I'm hoping they get right about this next one. So let's, like I said, fingers crossed.
One can only hope. It's in good hands, so that's
Agreed.
More than you can ask for.
Yeah.
And on that note, sir, until 2049 next week.
That's it. All right, my friend. I will see you here next week.
All right. Good night, everybody. Good night, my friend.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.